Okay, welcome. So in this video, I'm going to go through the first homework, but more importantly, I'm going to go through some basic strategies and tips and tricks for finding reliable published research in linguistics and applied linguistics. Um, and yeah, these are going to be so just basic tools to get started. How do I know what I'm looking at, and what should I be reading, right? So starting with the homework, the first part here is just a questionnaire to get to know who you are, what you are doing here, and what you hope to accomplish, and a little bit about your background. So this should be pretty straightforward. It's just looking for a little bit of information about you in that first part. And the second part here is when we're going to focus on, and this is a warm-up critique, I've called it, just to get you in the habit of picking out a piece of primary research and responding to it. So being able to identify what are the elements of this research paper, and what do I think of the research paper? Is it convincing, not convincing? What are they investigating? What are they trying to figure out here? What are the assumptions, right? And so, yeah, the first part here is to pick a research paper in your field and write a short report on it. And of course, picking a research paper in your field is pretty vague instructions. So what are we going to do here? Before we get into this, there's a couple important distinctions. And so a lot of these are covered in the chapter, the textbook from Perry that I put on the website for next week. There's kind of a hierarchy of how reliable different kinds of research sources are. And at the top of that hierarchy are articles that are published in peer-reviewed journals. Right? So these are journals. I'll talk a little bit about the peer review process later this semester, but it's sort of a special process by which researchers review and rate and criticize each other's research. And if something gets published in a peer-reviewed journal, it means that it's gone through a gamut of different processes to ensure its quality. There are other kinds of research publications like edited volumes or conference proceedings that don't have quite the same level of rigorous peer review, but are still being filtered and vetted and are high quality. There are then a whole class of other kinds of research papers that might not be published in an official form at all, and it's correspondingly more difficult to gauge the reliability of them. And so I'm going to talk a little bit about casting a narrow net, you might say, to try to get only reliable published research, and then also talk a little bit about broadening outwards to look at a variety of different sources. So for this assignment in particular, there's sometimes a distinction that's made between primary research papers or literature and secondary or review papers, right? And so a lot of the things you'll find if you Google like a very broad term of communicative language teaching or French phonology or something like that, you might get these overview papers that sort of give you a state of the art, a look at an entire area of research and what other people have found there. These are very useful kinds of papers, but not for this assignment. For this assignment, we want like a little chunk of primary research where the paper is reporting a little piece of research that was done just by the author and is not necessarily about some entire broad topic. So try to pick a primary research paper here and not a review paper or a secondary summary kind of article. And if you're having trouble figuring out the difference, or you can't figure out whether the thing that you found fits into one or the other, just let me know and I'll help you find one. Yeah, and so what are we going to be looking for when we summarize this paper? Well, I'm looking for about 1 to 2 pages. And I'd like you to give first an introductory paragraph about what's the paper about, what's the general area that this paper is in, and then narrowing into what are some of the more specific questions or issues or hypotheses that are addressed in the paper. Explain what they did, right? And this is why a summary or a review paper is not good here, because there is no real methodology. They're just summarizing a whole bunch of other papers. So you want, this might be a questionnaire, it might be an experiment, it might be doing field work with a speaker of some endangered language, but whatever the authors of the paper did to get their data, that's what we want here. What are the hypotheses or the research questions that they're trying to test? Do they take a side? Do they specifically put forth a hypothesis? What do they find in the study? Right? So what do we know at the end that we didn't know before? And what do they conclude from those findings, right? So if they found that group X is better than group Y, what do they say about that? What is that supposed to show? And then finally, what do you think about that conclusion? Is that actually what the findings show, or do you see issues there? What's the paper like? And so these are sort of the minimal elements about this critique. And of course, if there's other things about the paper that catch your attention or your curiosity, you can also include those as well. But I'm looking for minimally these 4 or 5 elements, right? So how are we going to find a paper? Well, the first step here is just to pick something you're interested in and search for it. Where are you going to search? We have this wonderful linguistics library guide that was put together by our research librarian, Ching Ju. It brings together a number of excellent sources. Oh, sorry, going back a step, I came to our beautiful course website that I designed. And there's a link to the linguistics library guide right here. We're at the linguistics research guide here, done by the research librarian. And there's an overview. There's a bunch of resources here, sort of general things about reading research and looking for research. Some of the links on this first page will get you immediately to some listings of different kinds of journals and databases. But I'm going to suggest that for this assignment, you might want to stay away from these very, very general databases and instead go take a look at the Find Articles section over here. And of course, this information under literature review and research methods, also very useful, but quite general information. Let's go to the Find Articles section. This is specifically what we want to do here. And here are some of the databases that you can search for here. So in this first part, we're going to cast what I called a narrow net. We're looking now in academic databases of published papers. And so these act as kind of filters or gatekeepers, and you can be pretty sure that anything you turn up in these databases is going to be reliable scholarly research. So we're going to start here. And there's a couple different options here. I think for applied linguistics, ERIC is generally considered the standard database. And this is going to be mostly limited to applied linguistics kind of sources, including journals, dissertations, and all other sorts of things. Academic Search Complete here is a very general database that's not limited to applied linguistics or linguistics in general. It's going to turn up a much broader range of journal articles. So either one of these, in principle, could be useful. This one will turn up all sorts of things that might be outside narrow linguistic or applied linguistic sources. This one is going to be mostly limited to applied linguistics. JSTOR, I don't really find useful. It's a sort of idiosyncratic collection of journals that will include some stuff, but not a lot of it. And most of these journals are going to be indexed in one of these other databases anyway. This linguistics database is good for basic linguistic work. And then anytime, there's one more thing here that's sort of useful. This ProQuest Dissertations and Theses database. This is limited only to thesis documents, right? So to get your master's degree or your PhD, you have to file a thesis. Most of American universities and some foreign universities have all of their dissertations available in full text on this database. And so if you're ever looking for somebody's dissertation, this is a great place to look. That won't be relevant to this first exercise for sure. So a dissertation is usually at least a couple hundred pages long, and it's very, very comprehensive. It's not the kind of thing you want for this assignment, but at some point in your life, you might want to look at somebody's dissertation, and this is the place to go. So I'm going to start by picking a topic that I really know almost nothing about, because I want to show that this is not rocket science. You don't have to be an expert in the subject in order to find relevant articles. And so I'm going to pick something in applied linguistics here. And in particular, I have heard that all the language classes in our department use communicative language teaching. And I have no idea what that is or how it works. I've never taught a language class. So I want to find a paper that's about communicative language teaching and tells me a little bit what that approach is all about. And maybe I'm specifically interested in the evidence for that approach as opposed to some other approach to language teaching. So let's start in the most general database here, the Academic Search Complete. And you're going to have to sign in using your library credentials, because this database, once you've signed in, will allow you to get right into full text PDFs of different kinds of papers. Oh dear, and we have these Duo tokens, which are a giant pain in the butt. That's why I put my course website in plain HTML and not on eCampus. I don't like having to do this every time I want to look at the website or change something. Anyhow, I'm signed in now, I hope. They're getting me into the library database, and here we are. So I'm now signed in with the WVU libraries. That means I have access to all the stuff that the library subscribes to. And this is just every journal that's indexed by EBSCO, which is a giant company that does this sort of thing. Let's take a look at communicative language teaching. Oh, there we go. Pops right up. So what happens first if I just search for that term? Lots and lots of results here, 1,400 results. And so also Perry goes through this in this chapter, as well as in the literature review chapter. You might want to narrow your search terms down. Although first, let's take a look at what we're turning up here and then see if we want to narrow down some more, or if we don't feel like it. Right? So it's going to be a list of basically papers, right? And it's going to tell you, here's the paper. It's a very, very long title, Frequently Reported Practices in Communicative Language Teaching, an exploratory study of secondary schools and official schools of languages in the Madrid region. Okay, long titled paper. It's in an academic journal. That's what this is telling you. So presumably that means that it's peer reviewed. And the name of the journal is down here, if you can see it. So it looks like this is a Spanish language journal. It's an electronic journal of applied linguistics. The article itself, though, might not be in Spanish. It looks like it's probably not. The nice thing here is that with your library subscription, you can pull up the PDF immediately. So here's the full text of the article. I'm going to put this in a new tab because I want to come back to the list of results. And here's our PDF, I hope, if it works. There you go. Okay. So the first thing you'll find here in most published papers is an abstract. This one is not labeled as an abstract, but sometimes they will be. It's a little paragraph before the paper begins that gives you a quick, like, 2-minute summary of what's in there. So what's going on here? This paper is about the implementation of communicative language teaching. Oh, that's good. So far, so good. Its main goal is to map the variety of communicative practices carried out in the foreign language classroom as reported by 91 teachers. Well, that could be interesting, but I was kind of interested in seeing what the evidence is for learners, and that doesn't sound like that's exactly what this is about, so I'm going to put this aside for the moment. And already I've found out what's the general topic of the paper, and then next they're going to tell you what did they specifically do. They were asked about a variety of aspects of their daily teaching activity with a questionnaire. So this is a questionnaire survey of foreign language teachers asking about communicative language teaching. And then they'll also tell you what their findings were. This is sort of their summary of what they think the most important aspect of the results are. And then there's a sort of secondary results section here as well. Right? So again, this is a really good place to start deciding if you even want to look at the paper or not. Look at the abstract. Does it look like what interests you? If so, then go ahead and read the paper. If not, then don't. Right? So I'm going to put this one aside because I was more interested in what the learners get out of it than what the teachers put into it. But let's keep looking here. Translation and language learning. Untapped potential of functionalist approach to translation in the foreign language classroom. This is in a Czech journal of English language education. I happen to know that Brno is a city in the Czech Republic. This is not exactly what I'm looking for. Again, this looks like not specifically even about language teaching at all, but about a functionalist approach to translation. Here's the next one. Again, an academic journal article. This one is, where's the journal? It doesn't tell me the name of the journal. Oh, no, it does. ASA University Review. I don't know what that is, but if it's in this database, probably it's a real journal. This is communicative language teaching in English as a foreign language contexts, teachers' attitude and perception in Bangladesh. Ooh, that sounds interesting. Although, again, that focus on teachers and their attitudes makes me think that it's not going to be so much about learners and what they get out of it as it is about teachers. So here's the abstract. This is a much longer one. And we also find out here that this journal, ASA University Review, is a journal from the ASA University in Bangladesh. That's what the journal is. Okay, so what are we seeing in here? Very general statement about the general topic of the paper. CLT has been widely explored and studied by many countries. This study presents an overview of English language teaching in Bangladesh and then investigates the definition and principles of CLT. Okay, so they're going to review what CLT is. I did want to see that. A mixed method research design was used. Participants were 30 teachers of English, and there was a questionnaire and informal interviews. So that's what's going on here. They're, again, interviewing teachers about what they do. And again, they're going to have results here and some conclusions in the abstract. But at this point, it's pretty clear this is also not what I'm looking for. So what else can we do here? A lot of these seem to be about teacher beliefs. So here's another one about teacher beliefs and instructional practices. Here's a case study of teachers' perceptions and implementations of communicative language teaching. So I'm not getting exactly what I need. And at this point, I would probably want to go back and add some search terms here to zero in on what I'm looking for. But let me first also switch databases because there's going to be maybe more relevant things in the ERIC database. So right now I'm turning up hundreds and hundreds of papers from journals all over the world, some of which I've never heard of, and who knows what's what here. ERIC is going to be more narrow, and it's going to be more narrowly focused on applied linguistics journals mostly. So I'm going to do the same thing. This is also owned by EBSCO, but it's a different database because we're searching just ERIC now, which is this large applied linguistics database. I'm again looking for communicative language teaching. Let's see what ERIC turns up. Oh, this looks like probably the same authors. They're talking about practices and outcomes of communicative language teaching in higher secondary schools in rural Bangladesh. This is interesting to me because it looks like it's about outcomes, not just what the teachers are doing. So let me take a quick look at this. Again, conveniently, because I'm signed in with my library account, I can click here and hopefully get a full text of this. Well, not quite. Oh yeah, download full text if I want it. Anyway, here's the abstract. Now we're looking to provide insights into the challenges of CLT in this particular Bangladeshi setting. And they're employing a qualitative approach. That means, again, probably interviews, in-depth interviews. And again, this is going to be with language teachers to explore the problems they face in CLT implementation. Right? So this looks like more of the same, talking about the teacher side factors, rather than the student side factors. So again, probably not what I'm looking for here. I'm going to keep checking down the list. And the point here, more than the specific content of CLT and whether we're interviewing teachers or measuring students, I just want to show you that you can definitely take your time, work through some of the results. If you're not getting what you want, then try a different database, try searching something else. We'll do that in a minute. But you can also hop between papers, look at the abstract, see if that one looks interesting, so on and so forth. You don't have to commit too fast here. Here's one, effects of the Vaughan method in comparison with the audiolingual method and the communicative language teaching on Iranian advanced English foreign language learners' speaking skill. Well, that seems like a good one. So they're comparing CLT to a bunch of other approaches. Let's see what we got here. This is from the International Journal of Instruction. Again, I'm not an expert in this field. I don't know that journal, but if it's in ERIC, it's probably okay. The present study intended to examine the effectiveness of the Vaughan method. So I'll get to learn what the Vaughan method is, and also the audiolingual method and the CLT method with regard to the development of learners' speaking skills. This one is not qualitative. It's a quasi-experimental design, which is a fancy way of saying that they tried to do a controlled study. And so we have 3 different classes of 90 EFL learners. They're given a pre-test to see how good they are at speaking at the beginning. And then they're going to be taught with one of these 3 methods. And then we're going to see if they improve at post-test, meaning after they've received the instruction, how did their score do? Right? What do they find? Learners in the Vaughan class had significantly higher performance than the ones in the audiolingual class, but no difference from the CLT class in terms of developing the learner's speaking skill. There's also a questionnaire here to see what they thought about the Vaughan thing. And what do they get out of those qualitative results? Well, they think that one of the major things associated with the Vaughan method was useful. Right? So this is, in a nutshell, what the study is going to be about. Maybe at this point I decide, that one looks neat. I'm going to go check it out. In which case, sorry, what I just did was hit the download full text button over here. And now I have a nice PDF of the paper. If I want to save it to my computer, I can save it. And now I just have this on my computer. I don't need to go search for it again. Pretty neat. Okay. So having said that, looks like Eric turned up some more narrowly relevant results than the broader academic search database that we started in. What if I wanted to go even more specific than this? Or what if I wanted to limit my results to the evidence base for CLT? Well, if CLT is producing too many outputs, here we're getting 2,000 papers that have communicative language teaching indexed to them. What if we add a search term like communicative language teaching evidence or effectiveness or something like that? Let's see what happens now. Whoa, we just cut out 92% of all the papers that we were looking at before. Now we have a very narrowly focused, well, somewhat narrowly focused list of 80 papers, which is good. Are they relevant? Teachers' reflections on task-based language teaching 3 years after. Well, that is not really relevant because it's, again, about teachers. It's not really about evidence, and I'm not sure if it's about communicative language teaching or not. Lots of games and little challenge. A snapshot of modern foreign language teaching in English secondary schools. Sounds like they're not big fans of that model. And I think this one is going to be probably an overview paper, if I had to guess, based on that title. Uh-oh, is my internet out? Challenges of teaching from home. I don't know, here it is, okay. Cool. Language Learning Journal, again, presumably a reputable journal, although not totally sure. Here's the summary. We have declining enrollments in foreign language classes, and maybe that's because we're really bad at teaching foreign languages. This sentence makes no sense to me. The methodology has been, has been accused of applying the communicative language teaching approach in a selective way. Oh, I see, okay. In a selective way and not providing pupils with a sense of progress and achievement. There's little empirical evidence from modern foreign language classrooms, so we're going to go investigate what people are doing out there in applying the CLT. So instead of, again, looking at student outcomes, they're going to go look at classroom activities in different foreign language classrooms and assess basically how well they're fitting with the CLT approach, and they're going to conclude that they're not doing a very good job. So again, this could be interesting, but it's not exactly what I was looking for. What else are we finding here? Adopting a cultural portfolio project in German as a foreign language, language teacher cognition as a dynamic system. I'm going to just skip this one because it doesn't sound like what I was looking for at all. Here's one, a potted history of PPP with the help of ELT Journal. I don't know what either one of those abbreviations is for. Let's see what we got here. Well, my connection seems to be getting slower and slower. I have a feeling it's going to fail at some point. This is my home internet. It is glorious, as you can see. Well, in the meantime, let's see if the last sort of thing I was going to try here. Oh, wait, here it comes. All right. This article charts the checkered history of the presentation practice production model in English language teaching, told partly through reference to articles in ELT Journal. I would imagine that's probably the journal this is appearing in. Yeah, that's what it looks like. Okay. So this is going to be a broad overview, right, where they're discussing the entire history of this model and how it interacts with different theoretical concerns. And they're not reporting any original research here. They're giving you a summary and an overview of all the stuff that's happened since it looks like the 1980s. So this could be quite interesting, but it's not appropriate for our reaction assignment, right? Because this is going to be a huge amount of material. You're not going to be able to come up with quick, easy answers to those questions I asked you on the homework, and so on and so forth. So now you've seen what some of these different kinds of article types are like. The last thing here, what if I want to cast a really broad net and I don't necessarily have the linguistics research library page handy, and I don't have my Duo codes or whatever, I can't get into the WVU system. What is the world's biggest database of academic work? Well, the answer is Google. So what happens when you look for academic work on Google? Well, it's a much, much broader source than anything that the library has access to. This is a specialized academic database. This is Google, right? But here's the thing, it's going to turn up more results than any other database you can possibly imagine, and it's super easy to use, but some of the stuff it turns up is going to be totally unreliable, garbage, people's private websites and blogs, and so on and so forth. That doesn't make it useless as a tool. I use Google all the time to look for linguistic stuff. It just means that you need to know what you're looking at and expect a wider range of results that are maybe not as reliable as library sources would be. So what happens if you Google communicative language teaching? So first of all, this is stored in my machine because I did a dry run yesterday. If you just do this, are you going to get academic papers? Not directly. All right. What you're going to get is, first of all, this blurb that tells you what communicative language teaching is. Probably from, not from Wikipedia in this case. It's from some other website I've never heard of. So again, this is somebody trying to define what communicative language teaching is. Is this reliable as a correct definition? I have no idea. I've never seen this website before, but it looks reasonable, I think. What else am I going to get here? The Wikipedia article. Wikipedia is not appropriate as a reference or a source when you're doing academic writing, but it is tremendously useful for doing research or for trying to figure out what things are. Absolutely, if I just wanted to know what CLT is, I would click on this Wikipedia page and believe what it says. In basic linguistics, at least, I can tell you that 98% of what's on linguistics pages in Wikipedia is correct. It's very, very well done. It's an invaluable resource. That said, it's not so reliable that you should be using it as a direct source for a real academic paper. It is useful for situating yourself and trying to figure out what's going on in an area, though. So I would absolutely use that to locate further resources, but I wouldn't use it as a source in and of itself. Right? Here's a bunch of pages where people are going to be explaining what communicative language teaching is. Right? Obviously, communicative language teaching is not a term that only pops up in academic research. It's a pervasive idea in foreign language education. So when you Google it, you're going to get mostly public-facing pages explaining the communicative language teaching approach. But I'm interested in academic research, and that's where this first part up top comes in. So when you Google something that's kind of scholarly, they're going to give you the option of clicking on this link that says scholarly articles. And this is going to take you to Google Scholar. Google Scholar is just like regular Google, except it's limited to results that they have indexed as academic papers. Right? And so Google is going to have, first of all, far more results than any other database in the universe. There's 885,000 articles and papers that mention communicative language teaching in this database. And they're going to often have links to full texts where they're publicly available, right? So you don't need your library credentials to get at these, except maybe this one. I don't know what that address is. But for sure, ResearchGate is a social media site for academics, and you thought Facebook was the most boring thing in the world, where people post their papers, and if you click on that link in Google, you're going to immediately find a PDF of this paper. There's a whole book here about CLT. It will tell you exactly what's in it. These results I'm using these to sort of illustrate what you get when you search Google. None of these are going to be probably particularly useful because I, again, used a very broad search term, communicative language teaching, and that's going to give me very broad and general results. What am I getting here? I'm getting something from TESOL Quarterly. That's a real peer-reviewed journal. But this is a state-of-the-art article. So it's going to tell you, again, summarizing lots of recent research as of 1991 and telling you what people think about CLT. That's not what we're looking for this assignment. Here's some misconceptions about communicative language teaching. Here's just general overview articles. What is communicative language teaching? A lot of these are older, and they're probably showing up first in the Google search because they are the most cited papers. That is, other people have referenced these as being important papers. That doesn't make them the most relevant. It just means that they're the most influential ones are listed first. Some of these have full text PDFs that you can see over here. Some of them don't. If you find one that you really want to look at, but you can't get at a PDF of it, you can try the WVU libraries. And if that doesn't work, there's other more involved options that I can definitely help you with if you write to me. Okay, so again, it looks like that was probably too broad a search. I'm going to go back to regular Google here. What happens if I do communicative language teaching evidence? Again, we get this link to scholarly articles, and so I'll probably click on that in a minute. What else do we get here? Ooh, we have a full text PDF. The results of this study provide evidence that the only task-based activity used during the classes was dramatization. That seems kind of relevant. Here's the problem. I don't know exactly what this is until I go click on it. Oh, now we got it. It's from a journal, English Language Teaching. It's indexed in ERIC, so it looks like that's probably a reliable journal. The use of CLT to improve students' oral skills. What did they do here? They're going to check if the use of CLT approach in English classroom. We're going to have 6 English teachers and 105 students at a public school in the city of Loja in Ecuador, and a mixed method approach. So that usually means both quantitative and qualitative data. We're going to give a questionnaire to the teachers. We're going to observe the classes, and we're going to figure out what kinds of strategies the teachers are using. Additionally, teachers provide different kinds of feedback. Okay, so this is another study, it looks like, where we're seeing what teachers are doing, not necessarily looking at outcomes for students. What else do we find here? Research on effectiveness of communicative language teaching. That sounds right up my alley. Since China initiated CLT practice, it's enjoyed increasing popularity. Although China's educational system is centrally controlled, the top-down intervening policy of CLT fails to improve students' interactive competence. This paper reveals that direct transfer of Western-originated CLT practice is infeasible and ineffectual without considering the specific contextual factors in China and doomed to be a failure. So here's what I still don't know about this based on this overview. It is in a journal, Asian Culture and History. This doesn't communicate clearly whether they actually have original research findings or whether they're just voicing an editorial opinion about CLT. And I need to pursue this a little further, it looks like, in order to figure that out. Let's see what we found here. So again, free download available. historical and theoretical background. Here's how it works in China. Oop, I missed one. I'm looking for sections now of the paper. Conclusion, yeah, so there's no original data reported here. This is just them summarizing what they have learned about CLT. Okay, so again, I'm now in general Google, and I'm getting mostly actually scholarly results here, but they're a little bit disorganized. I'm getting multiple copies of the same papers. Google Scholar is going to be a little bit narrower, but probably a bit more organized. Focus on form and corrective feedback in CLT, effects on second language learning. That looks promising. First article on Google Scholar suggesting that it's been very popular, and indeed, if you look down here, you can see 1,100 other papers have cited this one. So this is a very influential paper. Maybe that means I want to take a look at it. Okay. The developing oral English of approximately 100 second language learners was examined in this study. They were native speakers of French who'd received a 5-month intensive ASL course. A large corpus of classroom observation data was also analyzed. Substantial between class differences were found in the accuracy with which students use such English instructions. Right. So this kind of looks like right up my alley. Maybe I want to download this paper. For whatever reason, even though Google was telling me, oh, I see. This link will take you to the official journal article, which is paywalled, and we can probably get in here with our WVU account. But Google is also linking me to a free PDF, which is sitting again on ResearchGate, this social media site. Now I don't need to sign into WVU libraries, and this looks like exactly what I'm looking for. Right? So I've got the full text here. Boom, good. Anyway, the point is, I'm not going to go through this in this video and do the assignment, but this is how you find papers, use all these different sources, know what to expect in different databases. If I want to make sure I can get full text, the official journal version of this, I'm just going to copy the entire title and put it into my official WVU database and see if they have it. Let's see. No. No, this is a different one. Yeah, so it looks like they don't have this particular article indexed in ERIC, which is okay. It still looks like a legitimate journal. In any case, the idea is looking in official databases, looking in less official databases, sometimes using Google if you're having trouble, narrowing down your search terms, adding terms to try to narrow down the kinds of papers that you're going to get, and finding something that fits with your interests, right? And also trying to make sure that it's a manageable paper, that it's not a big overview of an entire field, but is a narrow report of some kind of a study that they've done. So these are the basic tools you can use to do this. There's a ton more resources on this library research website that Qingju made for us. And yeah, these are all good places to look. For basic linguistics topics, I would say that this linguistics database is probably a good place to look. Let's say I'm interested in, oh, I don't know, what's a basic linguistics topic? I'm interested in the trill sound in Spanish. So I'm going to search Spanish trill. What happens? We return a whole bunch of different sources here. This one is a dissertation. So it's a dissertation somebody wrote in 2015 at the University of Kansas. This is about studying abroad and acquiring the Spanish trill in a second language. It's not exactly basic linguistics, but here's one, an acoustic study of the pre-aspirated trill in Cibaeño Dominican. That sounds pretty neat. It's not the trill sound I was thinking of, but it's a regional variant on that trill that sounds like I'd be interested in studying. This is in a scholarly journal. Here's another dissertation. It's about certain kinds of consonant sequences in Spanish Basque bilinguals and SLA. Here's a scholarly journal. Limitations of the influence of English phonetics and phonology on second language rhotics. Here's the development of rhotics. Rhotics are R sounds. A comparison of monolingual bilingual children. This is going to be in a scholarly journal. Another scholarly journal, neutralization of the two different kinds of R sounds in Spanish, in this particular Northern Belize dialect. So there's going to be lots and lots of stuff on Spanish phonology and phonetics here. Some of it's going to be narrowly relevant to trills, some of it won't be. This is what we're pulling up here. There's also a mix of basic and applied linguistic kind of research here. But this is a decent database as well. So really the principles, you might be looking up very different topics if you're doing basic linguistics or applied linguistics, but the principles of how to search for literature and decide what to read are really the same. And it's always take a look at the abstract if there is one. That's going to give you a quick yes or no answer on whether it's worth looking more at the paper. And then if you do find something you're interested in looking at, start reading the introduction first. That's going to give you a bunch of background information and tell you what the article's about. And then if that seems like something you want to write about this week, then go ahead and take a look at the rest of the paper. It's okay if you don't understand every detail of the data analysis and the methodology. Try to figure out broadly, what did they do in this study? And that's basically how to do the assignment this week. And yeah, that's what I got for you.